The Reds right the ship with a big win against the Seattle Mariners. We'll talk about this team, who's actually on it right now, and what's up next. We got all that on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are free and available on all platforms. I'm Steve Offenbaker, and that's not Jeff Carr over there. We have a special guest co-host for you today. Joining me on Locked On Red is our good buddy, Tim Daniel. You know him from the Riverfront, as well as a lot of other things. He does late night Reds over there every Sunday night on the Riverfront feed, and we are very lucky to have him today. Everydayers, thanks so much for being here. If you are an everydayer, get into the comment section. Let us know what you think about this Reds team and what they're doing right now. Just like Jeff and I, Tim is a diehard baseball fan. We all have a passion for baseball. We all have a passion for the Cincinnati Reds, and we have turned our passion into information for you. On today's podcast, we are going to discuss exactly who is on this Reds team right now, because the last time we did a show last week, Friday, the picture has changed dramatically over the weekend and through the holiday, the long weekend. There's a lot of moves that the Reds made. I think at one point in a 24 to 30 hour time period, they made 33 roster moves. It's quite a lot to keep up with. We're also going to take a look at the resurgence of Tyler Stephenson, who could not be getting hotter at a better time. And then we're going to round things out talking about yesterday's bullpen day and the Reds turning to yet another rookie to save the starting rotation, because Connor Phillips' season starts today. Before we get into all of that, I want to shout out the sponsor of today's podcast. We are brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, Tim, welcome into the show. Glad to have you here. Let's start with just who's on this team, because it has been a little difficult to keep up with over the last several days. Let's just start with the pitching staff. Some names we know, some names we don't. Leading this staff still, he's the lone man standing pretty much, Andrew Abbott. In a bullpen, we've got TJ Antone, who has returned from injury, 2 outings now and looked great. We've got Alexis Diaz. We've got Daniel Duarte, Buck Farmer, Ian Jabot, Derek Law. Casey Legumina gets the call back up to the big leagues. Michael Marriott. Who the heck do we know Michael Marriott? This is a new face that joined us over the weekend. Sam Mull is still here. Connor Phillips has been added, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later in the show. Chasen Shreve is on this team, Tim, and I can't wait for you to tell me all about Chasen.
Oh, boy.
Rounding it out, we've got Lucas Sims and Carson Spires, who we saw start a game over the weekend. So there's a lot of names in there on this pitching staff that are new faces that we didn't see, and a lot of this is just happening out of desperation because, I thought we were done talking about COVID as far as sports go. I see it every day in my day job, but COVID has come back and reared its ugly head in the Reds clubhouse.
So the moves of you've seen the movie Clue, right? With Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, when it was in theaters, or the idea was every theater got a different ending and it would all rotate. So if you talk to your friend about it, who lived somewhere else, could you believe this? When you watch the movie on theatrical release, it has every ending in it. So you see them bouncing back and forth from every room. It's amazing, by the way. My point is, that's what it's like following the Reds right now with the COVID issues they're having of this guy comes in, this guy goes out, this guy comes in, this guy goes out. Brett Kennedy was all right, he's going to be a spot starter. And yesterday they had to use him for 3 or 4 innings in that massacre from the Cubs. You mentioned,
and they've sent him down.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, was the gentleman's name that pitched today? I was at the game. I should know this.
Chasen Shreve. Did he throw today?
No, I'm sorry. Michael Marriott. Okay.
Marriott.
So 34 years old. This is his first big league game since 2014. I'm sorry, 2016 with the Phillies. But had a really, really cool story today where he talked about he was like a day away from retiring and quitting playing baseball, and the Reds gave him a call. So that was neat, and did what was needed. He's probably DFA'd tomorrow.
For sure.
Yeah, but because he threw 3 innings today, but 2 2/3. You get my point. But yeah, I think that it's just a lot of revolving pieces to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at this bullpen, chasing Shreve is not a guy that's going to stick around. No. They just need an arm, anybody with an arm. Jeff went on vacation this week, but I know he was out at the ballpark today, and I told him to make sure he stretched before he went.
Yeah,
because
same.
He might have to pitch, right? And I hope you were ready to go too, because it's just ridiculous. But
the Reds podcast brothers, we were getting our arms ready together.
Yeah, there you go.
Long toss.
I imagine Carson Spires is not going to be here for long. I mean, he gutted out a start. They may need him to make another turn in the rotation, depending on how fast guys come back from this COVID outbreak that's going on. I imagine Casey Legomina could stick around for a while. I would also imagine that of the rest of the guys in this bullpen, Marriott and Shreve are your first 2 out as guys start to come back. And then you figure it out from there, because one of the things we're going to talk about is that Connor Phillips is going to make his major league debut today. And we're going to get into him in the 3rd segment, but I imagine he could be around through the end of the season. So the pitching staff is still going to be a work in progress. The position players, it's not quite as janky, I guess. There's mostly names we know right now that are on this roster. As far as catchers goes, it's still Luke Mailey and Tyler Stephenson. On the infield, Ellie De La Cruz, CES, Noel V. Marte. Nick Senzel is now listed as an infielder. We know he can bounce back and forth. And then Spencer Steer also listed as an infielder. For as far as outfielders go, Harrison Bader, waiver wire pickup from the Yankees, Will Benson, Stuart Fairchild, Jake Fraley, TJ Friedel, Nick Martini, love some Nick Martini right now, and Hunter Renfroe, another waiver wire pickup over the weekend. And let's talk about those waiver wire guys, because Jeff and I, speculated before the news came as who they would try and get and how things would actually shake out. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get any of the pitchers that were targeted. Cleveland really kind of jacked us up on all of that. But Jeff and I both said at the time that Bader and Renfroe we thought would be useful additions to this outfield for the September stretch run. Talk a little bit about those 2 guys and what we've seen from them so far and what you think about these pickups.
So Harrison Bader, I think it's kind of disappointing. So if you look at his stats since becoming a Red, they're not jaw-dropping, right? He doesn't have, I don't think he has a hit yet, but he is grinding out at bats. He's playing really good defense, and without him, they don't win Saturday night. He doesn't steal 3rd there in the 9th inning, which was ballsy, very ballsy.
For sure.
They don't win that game. And so that was really awesome. Hunter Renfroe had a huge game today, 2 big hits. And so those guys are kind of, Renfroe's and Renfroe had the game winning fielder's choice. How often do you get to say that about a Major League Baseball game, right? But I think that's going to be, they're getting used to playing on a new team. I'm not necessarily worried about what we haven't seen from them yet. Like I said, Renfroe swung the bat really well today. I think Bader's going to be fine. I think, obviously he's a former Cardinal, and I know a lot of people still hold that grudge against him. But, he's a Gold Glove center fielder. He's a guy that I'm really open to being on the ball club next year if it's a possibility. So, and he still mashes left-handed hitting. He had a ball he crushed today. It just so happened to be an out. So I think they're going to be really, really useful. They found ways to show like they're vets, and they've been around the block. So I appreciate them. So
yeah, Renfroe 2 for 4 today. He had a walk, also scored a run, an RBI. I'm hopeful that he can be that veteran presence / guy off the bench that you can use. I don't know that he'll start a lot or start every day, but the Reds were desperate for outfield help.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that happened with these waiver wire pickups, and I'm struggling to say those words today, is that they sent down Ciani, who was then claimed by the Cardinals. He's now a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. How do we feel about that? For me, I don't know that it's a tremendous loss. I would have maybe liked to seen a little bit more of him to see if they could push his development along. But, I think at this point, he may have been showing us who he is.
Yeah, I think so. Stevens, obviously, you're not a prospect hugger, and that's okay. But what did we see from him that doesn't make us feel like he's not close to his big league ceiling? And that's kind of where I was at. And I hope the best for him, even though he is playing there now. I don't want anyone to have a failure of a big league career. But I just didn't see a situation where, where was he going to crack into the Reds for the future plans? Not just what's in the outfield now, but if you look at what's down in the system, who's he better than that was potentially going to be playing in the outfield, especially all these guys that are middle infielders that they're going to have to move around the places.
So the notable names missing from this right now are obviously Matt McLain, who's on the injured list, Joey Votto, who's on the injured list. And Jeff and I haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about Joey, but do you think we're going to see Joey Votto back before the end of the season? Is he going to get healthy and back on the active roster for a potential postseason run?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I don't know exactly when. We just talked about this on the Riverfront this week on our one of our episodes about, I don't think he's going to do a minor league rehab assignment, mainly because minor league seasons are coming to an end pretty soon. But also, I think it's kind of one of those things where, he gets that it's not set in stone. He'll be a Red next year. And I think he's a guy that, like, as soon as he can play, he's going to want to play. And I think, he wants to really be a part of this team. He doesn't want to miss out on it. It's going to take a little longer to recover than most. He is going to be 40 this week. So, but yeah, I certainly think they do. And I think the team wants him back. I think they need that guy to kind of be like, when things aren't going well, they can look to be like, we're going to figure this out. We've got this. And without him, we don't really have that guy.
I need for him to be back by the end of the season because I have tickets to September 24th. I'm going to be in town.
Hey, me too.
That's the final home game of the season.
Yeah. And I'm going to Cleveland that week.
Be playing. Right. He better be playing. So I need for him to be there and in the lineup on September 24th.
You coming in town for the Monday night game?
I'm going to be, I'm actually going to be there for a while in and out of town. So I'll be around. So
cool.
We'll have to get together for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's what I know for sure. The Reds got better with the waiver wire claims. The pitching staff, while it's not improved, if it can just hang on to get these guys back from the COVID illness and strengthen things heading into September, the Reds are in good shape to try and pull out one of these final wildcard spots. Also helping out with that, Tyler Stephenson has shown signs of life. And coming up next, we are going to discuss the Reds' #1 catcher. Before I get into any of that, though, I want to shout out one of the sponsors of today's podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Sleeper. With the Major League Baseball playoffs just around the corner, it means it's time to get in on your opportunity to win a little money. The clock is ticking on your chance to get 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is right now with studs like Matt McLain, who will be back soon, Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer. The list goes on and on and on and on. Noelvi Marte. All of these Reds rookies are making it exciting, and you can get them to pay out to you by placing your bet on Sweeper. 100 times the payout. You just get your picks right, and you could win big. If you think that Ellie De La Cruz is going to steal some bases, you just select more on the stolen bases. If you think Spencer Steer is going yard, pick more on the home runs. If you think that Noelvi Marte is going to start jacking some bombs, pick those homers. The possibilities are endless. You can, get with your friends and create a group and go against each other, see who can win more money. You can take up to 100 times your money with your first bet. Entries can be made quick and easy in under a minute, and the payout is safe and secure. Just head over to the Sleeper app right now on the Apple Store and use the promo code Locked On to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Sleeper.com can get you set up. Use the Sleeper app. Get your money today. Remember, if you can't be at the ballpark, you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the app and search the word Reds. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Everydayers coming up on tomorrow's show. I'm going to dig into Game 2 of this series with the Seattle Mariners, or the Reds West, as we like to call them, and talk about the debut of Connor Phillips. Before we get to all that tomorrow, though, there's still a lot to cover today, Tim. And again, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into this segment, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on with the Riverfront. And you guys have been doing some fun stuff. I know that Jeff's going to join you for a live show coming up.
Yeah.
And you guys got big things happening as the Riverfront celebrates its 500th episode.
Yeah, so Riverfront, formerly Red Lake Nation Radio, from the back in the day. I think that's what most people remember it for. Chad Dotson, Nate Dotson, and crew, Chris Garber, Bill, they're all going to be hanging out. But we're doing a really cool thing. For those who don't know, the stretch in the Banks in Cincinnati is literally steps away from Great American Ballpark, literally feet. So we're going to be doing a live show there from 4 to 6 to celebrate our 500th. We're going to have Joe Farfsing on from Riverfront Bengals show. I almost said Locked On Bengals. Like, they'll probably, you got me twisted here, Stephen.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. Well, James Rapine apparently is going to be joining us for the Bengals segment. So that is good.
There you go.
I guess before he heads up to Cleveland for week 1. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be there and we're going to go to the game. I think we got tickets. We're going to be in 146. We're going to be by the Riverfront Stacks. So if you guys want to come hang with us, we'll be hanging out there throughout the game. And, we like when people buy us beers, especially when they're a mortgage at Great American Ballpark. So if anyone wants to do that to celebrate 500 with us, we will happily accept it. And then there will also be some bigger announcements at the show.
Ooh.
So
look at that tease. We call that a tease in the business. Nice work there, Tim.
Yes, we do. I learned that from the baby faces of pro wrestling. So.
All right. Well, I know Jeff is looking forward to joining you guys out there. He's already told me he's locked in on it. I'm a couple days later when I arrive in town, so I'm missing it. But I know you guys are going to have a blast out there, and I can't wait to listen to it and see what all the surprises are. All right, let's dive into, speaking of surprises, let's dive into Tyler Stephenson, because his season, there's really no other way to describe what his season has been other than a disappointment. I know that I've been disappointed in it. He's been disappointed in it. He's been very vocal about that, but he has shown signs of life lately. He started hitting for a little bit more power. He's getting around on the ball. He's had back-to-back really good games. He's starting to really put it together. And I can't think of a more perfect time if he was going to break out of this funk than to do it right now in this postseason stretch run where the Reds need him the most.
Yeah, so you mentioned, obviously, we talked about this on Late Night Reds last night on the Riverfront, shameless plug, just about what he's been able to do of late, and I have the numbers up right here. So, Steven, his last 15 games, his slash line looks like this: 359, 390, 718. That's a nice little OPS there for the kids. Also in that time frame, he's got 3 homers, 9 ribeyes, 14 hits, and scored 3 runs. So obviously where he hits in the lineup, runs are going to be a little harder to come by for a guy like him. But this has been huge for them, right? Like you mentioned, obviously this is a year that we all did not expect. I think if you had told me in April, you can bet on one guy to be successful at the plate this year, who's it going to be? I think I would say Tyler Stephenson. I think, I know he had the injuries last year. I think he only played like 40, 50 games. But the MO for him has always been, though, no matter what's going on behind the plate, he can hit. 2021, he was tremendous. So I think this is just kind of, I don't know. I mean, you're obviously, you know the medical field a lot more than I do. Maybe he's just now getting comfortable with the swing from a collarbone injury, potentially. I mean, he had a couple concussions last year. I mean, he went through the ringer last year, man. So now that he's kind of getting healthy and comfortable, it's great to see. Today, he turned on some balls. I know he reached on an error on one. Getting a little fleet of foot. Didn't see that coming. Got a nice little double today. I was like, what was that? But I love it. I'm a huge Tyler Stephenson guy. Collect a lot of rookie cards for Tyler Stephenson, so I really need him to be good for the sake of investment. But all joking aside, this is awesome. It's what you need in a time like this when your Indias, your Vados, your McLeans are not available. Just a guy that like you can kind of look to get a big hit, and I think this is who he is, man. Like maybe he's not a 1100 OPS guy for eternity, but maybe the MO is like, this is just him getting back into his groove and showing you didn't forget who he was.
He was on this show in the last off season, and he talked about wanting to catch 130 games. He talked about that he thought his body could physically hold up to all those things. And what never really occurred to me to talk to him about is what his shoulder felt like. And I have long speculated this season that clavicle break was not fully healed. Just the way he looked at the plate, the tardiness of his swings. I mean, it went beyond rust. It went beyond having missed last season. He just wasn't able to get around on the ball. And so I have speculated with Jeff several times that I thought that shoulder was still hurt. And, I think that it could explain some of his limited playing time, where nobody really wanted to come out and say he's still hurt. Nobody wanted to come out and say he's still dealing with the shoulder. But I think they babied him a little bit. And my hope is that that's allowed that thing to finally heal. And we're starting to see what that looks like. We saw this with Jesse Winker a few seasons back.
Oh yeah.
He had the wrecked shoulder. He finally got it fixed, and then he came back healed and was suddenly hitting for power. Now, I understand I'm not comparing and saying that they're the same hitters, but I am saying that when your shoulder is wrecked, you lose your ability to hit for power. And then when your shoulder gets right, suddenly the ball starts to leave the ballpark. And Tyler Stephenson is really demonstrating an ability to get around on the ball, to hit the ball hard, to drive it into the gaps. And I think that this bodes well for the Reds, because if you get Matt McLain back in this lineup, if you get Joey Votto in the right spots back in this lineup, and you can put Tyler Stephenson down, 8 or 9, hitting just behind Will Benson, come on. That's an opportunity for this team to really score some runs in the bottom third of the lineup. And I'm here for it.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think that there's going to be games where you need the bottom third to carry you, especially, we talk about the ups and downs of Ellie De La Cruz as a 21-year-old playing his first year in the big leagues. Like, we're going to expect those. But, when they have downs, like you've seen quite a bit from him, you need the bottom of the order to kind of pick those up. And, you get those dudes, like, I don't know, like, let's say they make the playoffs, right? Let's say they get this last wildcard spot. They go to play Atlanta, which is what it would look like. Is there a better 7, 8, and 9 in the order in the National League than what the Reds could go out there if Tyler Stephenson?
No, there's not.
Yeah. Even if you platoon Will Benson, I mean,
it's certainly, if they end up going to Atlanta, it's certainly not going to be the offensive woes the last time they faced Atlanta in a postseason series.
Certainly not.
I'm not worried about 18 innings of scoreless baseball if the Reds lineup is healthy and right. I think they'll be able to get at the Braves, as they've shown, playing them within one run every time they took the field together. So I'm not near as worried about that matchup as I was, in years past. One thing's for sure, Tim, Tyler Stephenson is picking the perfect time to become a driving force in this Reds lineup. And I am here for it. I'm here for him getting hot. I'm here for him helping to push this team forward towards a playoff appearance. Who else helped push this team forward towards a playoff appearance yesterday was the Reds bullpen. The Reds bullpen did a thing. It was bullpen day with TJ Antone. Oh my God, starting a game for the Reds. But now the Reds will turn to yet another rookie to help continue the push for the postseason. We're going to talk about Connor Phillips and the Reds bullpen coming up next. Remember, if you can't be at the ballpark, you can catch every pitch of the Reds hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the app and search the word Reds. You can also follow this podcast on all platforms, including right here on YouTube. If you have not clicked subscribe and the notification bell, fix that right now, because whenever we post something new, whenever I drop in some interviews with minor leaguers or folks from around baseball, you will get notified first when those special episodes hit the feed. So click subscribe, click the bell. You can also join us on our Discord server. We have a lot of fun over there talking between games. We do some live game chats over there. It's a lot of fun, a lot of great people on that Discord community talking baseball. And, Jeff and I always tell you, we love talking baseball with you. So get in there today. If you want to join, the description is in today's episode's link down at the bottom. All right. The Reds bullpen did a thing. When I heard bullpen day for yesterday, Tim, I was a little worried. We've had far too many bullpen days, sometimes on purpose and sometimes not on purpose. We've had too many bullpen days. This bullpen has done way more than its fair share of what should be asked of it, but they have delivered more often than not. And yesterday was another example. As I mentioned, TJ Antone started the game. I am so happy for what TJ Antone's doing right now. I really wasn't sure after the second Tommy John if he was going to make it back. And not only does he make it back, but he threw 2 innings yesterday, striking out 3, 2 appearances thus far, coming off the injured list, has not allowed a run, got that crisp 0.00 ERA after a couple of appearances. I'm happy for the success for the Reds, but I'm really just happy for TJ Antone as a player and a person.
Yeah, I think so. I was at the game, and just the way that he threw the ball, you could tell he had some confidence to him. He had a little swagger. He was working quick. I think he got through the first inning in about 11 pitches. He was just rolling. The Mariners were swinging like I do on MLB The Show against TJ Antone in that inning. But I think that just it's fascinating, right, Stephen? Because you see these guys who take a little bit to kind of get into their groove and their role when they come back, especially a guy who missed a year and a half of professional baseball. To see him kind of come back and be in his role and be comfortable immediately, and today do what they needed for him when he found out he was going to be starting yesterday. Pretty awesome, man. Pretty fascinating. But, he set the tone for the rest of the bullpen. We talked about our good friend Michael Marriott, Michael Hotel earlier, and what he was able to do. But, the whole bullpen, Lucas Sims comes in and gets Julio Rodriguez on a huge out. Ian Gibaut also ended the game getting Julio Rodriguez, which was amazing. Watching Julio Rodriguez in person is unbelievable, by the way. My God, that dude can swing the bat. But that's not what we're here. So it was awesome, man. I talk about this all the time if you follow our shows. So my wife and daughter went to the game with me, and the Reds do not lose when my family comes with me to games. They don't. Literally, my wife is like at games they've attended, she's 8-1. My daughter, she's 7 months. They're 3-0. And I said something to my wife in the car. I was like, I think this is probably the day your streak ends. And she's like, doesn't care. She's not like us.
Right.
Yeah. And she goes, and we're like leaving the stadium. She goes, I thought you said my streak was ending today. I was like, on paper, it looked like it was going to.
So does she understand now that there's a high likelihood that she's going to have to go to every game the rest of the way, including the playoffs?
I have been told by some of the late night Reds listeners that there's a GoFundMe started to get the Daniel family season tickets. I have not seen confirmation of this, but if they want to do that, we will happily take them.
That's fantastic. Well, let's round out this bullpen. So the Reds used a total of 7 pitchers, 7 relief pitchers.
And none were Alexis Diaz.
No, and none were Alexis Diaz. TJ Antone went 2. Mull went an inning. Duarte went an inning. Marriott went 2 2/3. Lucas Sims got that big out, as you mentioned, for a third of an inning, followed by Buck Farmer with 1 2/3. And then Ian Gibaut wrapped up the game, getting that final out. Everybody pitched really well. Only, they did allow a few runs along the way. Duarte gave up a run. Marriott gave up a run. Farmer gave up a run. But they really did a good job of limiting the damage and keeping the Reds in this game. And for me, that's really all you can ask from this group in September, as all of these guys are either at or have surpassed their career highs in appearances. I think Buck Farmer may have the most appearances in the National League.
Yeah,
I read somewhere along the way. It's a lot. It's a lot for players that I'm sure didn't expect to pitch this much.
Well, you mentioned, no one's going to fault Daniel Duarte for giving up a solo shot to Julio Rodriguez. As a matter of fact, they're okay. It's a solo shot and runners weren't on base for a guy like, when you face a guy like that, who is, especially a guy who literally can't get out at stretches like he had in August. So yeah, that's going to happen. I think Duarte's definitely pitched above and beyond what the Reds could expect from him, especially being I wouldn't say last resort. That's not fair to him, but a guy that they were like, hey, we just need you. Him and Alan Busnevich, I think, are kind of rotating between the two. Like, I'll be in Louisville this week. I'll be in Cincinnati next week. And so they were kind of able to put that together. I thought Buck Farmer threw the ball really well until the end there. I think he just kind of ran out of gas.
Yep.
And, that's, throwing 2 innings is hard, man, especially as a reliever. Like, you don't know if you're pitching that day, let alone 2 innings. That was tough. But, Michael Marriott, give him all the credit in the world. Like we said, he's probably not going to be on the club come Wednesday. But that dude, held it together in a game that the Reds really needed. And that was awesome, man. And, cool story. We've had quite a few of those this year. I think this is one of those games you can finally, this bullpen's kind of been a little shaky, right? Since All-Star break. Maybe I'm rambling here at the moment, but this is kind of maybe a game they needed. They needed that confidence to be like, we can take care of a game when need be. And they were awesome today, man. No other way to go around it. Yesterday, sorry.
Yeah. So now the Reds turn to yet another rookie to try and right the ship that is this drifting listing starting rotation. The Reds go to our guy, friend of the show. He was on here just a few weeks ago. Connor Phillips is going to make his major league debut. And I want to take a minute and kind of maybe temper expectations a little bit. I don't feel like, this is not going to be the second coming of Andrew Abbott. We're not getting a pitcher that's fully polished and ready to go. Connor he's struggled at times to find the zone and remain in control. And he talked about it on the show that he's had some issues with the automatic balls and strike system. He's had some issues feeling squeezed with that zone. He's had games that have gotten away from him but he also takes it personally when people dig in on his ability to control the ball and put the pitches where he wants to put them. Here's what I think we're getting with him. And if you have a different opinion, by all means, come at me with it, because I'm here for it. But I feel like this is going to be much more of a Brandon Williamson type debut than it's going to be an Andrew Abbott type debut.
Sure.
I think Connor is going to have flashes of being really good. He's going to have games where things go really, really well. But he's also going to have games where he looks like a rookie and the major league hitters are going to tee off on him, I think. What I'm hopeful is that with the ability to get up here and work with Derek Johnson and the major league coaches, it moves him along faster and gets him ready for next season, but also just helps to fill some of these innings that they've got to fill right now with Hunter Green and Brandon Williamson having COVID. I think that it's important just to get somebody up here that can eat some innings. Spires did his job, ate some innings, had a decent start, kept the Reds in the game. That's really all we need from Connor Phillips in this debut.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's struggled quite a bit. So his last two outings before this last one he had on the 31st, where he was awesome. I mean, he went 2 1/3. He got a save in that game. That was kind of funny. An inning and 2/3 where he gave up 4 runs, and an inning and a third where he gave up 6 runs. Then had the 6 innings, no runs, 6 strikeout game that he had in Louisville, his last start with the Bats before getting called up. I think he's tremendously talented. There's no doubt about that, but he does definitely have a lot of things he's figuring out. You mentioned the issues that he's been having with the automated balls and strike system. I heard quite a bit about that when I went down to Louisville, and just pitchers not really loving it. I kind of love it, to be honest, but I'm not a major league pitcher. So of course, right. But this is a situation, like you mentioned, you lean him more towards a Williamson than an Abbott. I am completely with you. He's going to have those moments, right? I mean, he's had them in AAA. And I think he's going to be really good. But if you're like a baseball fan looking for these young up-and-coming pitchers, this is the game for you. You've got him going against Bobby Miller, who is awesome. So fun to watch pitch. Just hate that he's pitching against my favorite team on this game. Really, really hope that, but I also don't want Connor Phillips to try to go pitch for pitch with him, because Bobby Miller is kind of more towards Andrew Abbott, right?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that for me, what are we looking for, Tim? What constitutes, what's our bare minimum to call it a successful start from Connor Phillips today? Do we need 5 innings out of him, less than 3 runs? Do we feel like that's a fair ask for him making his major league debut? I think that's kind of the threshold for the Reds to be in the game.
I agree. I think that's probably what you're looking for in that circumstance. But if he goes out there and gives you 4 and a run, great. Awesome. Perfect. Depending on who's up tomorrow, I assume Alan Busnevich will be up on the Big League Club tomorrow. If he's able to be probably 3 or 4 guys. Do you think Ricky Karcher comes back?
In a fit of desperation, it could actually happen. I mean, I think that it would have to be like half of the bullpen would have to come down with the virus there to make that happen, because I think that, he was a great story, and I don't think the Reds want to revisit it in a 2.0 version.
Yeah, it's one of those nice catch, Hayes, never do it again kind of moments.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. I think that is probably a great spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Tim, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for crossing over and being on the show. I look forward to hearing you guys with Jeff coming up at your live event. That's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get out of here, don't forget that you can catch every pitch of the Reds hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the app and search the word Reds. That's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks for always making us your first listen every day. Every dayers coming up on the next episode. I'll break down Connor Phillips' debut and hopefully be talking to you about a win streak with the Reds pulling down their 2nd win in a row. Until then, we will keep monitoring all of these transactions, keep you up to date on who's on this team and who is not, and we will keep you locked on Reds every single day.